Hear it for the cops who defended our democracy on January 6th. And where are all those phony defenders of law enforcement who only rear their ugly heads when some racist cop beats up an African-American citizen? We don't hear from them about January 6th, do we? We stand with the cops like we stand with the firefighters, like we stand with the teachers, like we stand with all public employees, the servants of the people. My friends, I greet the American majority this evening on January 6, 2022. Never forget that Hillary Clinton beat him by 3 million votes and Joe Biden beat him by 7.5 million votes. We're winning our congressional elections by millions and millions of votes. The young people are on our side. The new Americans are on our side. They are a shrinking minority party standing with the most authoritarian, fascistic elements of the whole country. And can we hear it for constitutional patriots like Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger who are standing up for our democracy? If you go back and you look at the history of coups and fascism on earth, progressives and liberals can never defeat fascism on their own. It is always progressives and liberals and the center right that come together to defend democracy. And we're going to do it again here in the United States of America. We are the majority. We are the majority. And I admit that they've got control over a lot of the levers of anti-democratic power in America, like the gerrymandering of our congressional districts, and like the filibuster, and like all of their voter suppression tactics, and like the court packing and right-wing judicial activism, but none of them can beat the power of the organized people of the United States of America. In every state, in every county, and in the Congress. So, we're in the fight of our lives, aren't we? And that's why I'm glad you're out here tonight. And I know there are people fighting for every democracy cause we've got. Do we have any people here who are residents of the Washington, D.C. itself here tonight? Well, I want to say, my friends, we have passed in the House of Representatives statehood for Washington, not once but twice. And we know that you are the only residents of a capital city on the planet Earth who are not represented in your own parliament. We are going to get statehood for the people of Washington, D.C. We're going to make that happen. And I want to thank the people of Washington because you have a real political grievance. There's real injustice here. And you know what? You didn't come and beat the daylights out of our officers, and you didn't storm the Capitol, and you didn't shut down the peaceful transfer of power in America. You're doing it the right way. You're building nonviolent popular power, movements for change, the only thing that's ever worked for real in American history. We are the heirs to the civil rights movement. We are the heirs to the women's movement. We are the heirs to the LGBTQ movement. We are the heirs to the environmental movement, the human rights movement, the peace movement. We are the democracy movement, and we're going to save American democracy. So, we got some tough days ahead of us, there's no doubt. But I know that the people here and the people at vigils across the country are standing up for strong democracy in America. We know what our parents fought for. We know what our grandparents fought for. We know what our great-grandparents fought for. We know what prior generations of Americans fought for. And we are a movement that is the heir to the Voting Rights Act of 1965 and the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and Social Security and Medicare and the Affordable Care Act. We are the heir to the civilizing movements of American history. And if Donald Trump and Steve Bannon and Roger Stone and Michael Flynn think that they are going to steal away from us the products and the progress of American democracy, they don't know who we are. They don't know who we are. Thank you, public citizen. Thank you all for being here tonight. How are you, brother? Good to see you. Thank you.
All right. Let's hear for Congressman Raskin. And let's hear it once again for all of the officers who stood up to defend our democracy that day. More than 800 from D.C. responded. And now it's my great honor to bring up my fellow organizer, the chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus and the great congresswoman from Washington State, Ms. Pramila Jayapal.
Public citizen, people for the American way, Americans who are not going to take any of this lying down but are going to fight for what we deserve and what is right, our democracy. Hello, and we are just beginning. Is that right? Now, this is a somber day for us, and we just came, members of Congress, many of us came from a really beautiful, cathartic experience of giving testimonials about our experience on January 6th, a year ago. And I can tell you I was trapped in the gallery along with some of my colleagues that you'll hear from. And I remember every moment of it vividly. I remember the pounding on the doors of the insurrectionists. I remember crawling on my knees under banisters with a cane in one hand because I had just had a knee replacement surgery 5 weeks before. I remember lying on the floor with a gas mask in one hand and the cane in the other, thinking about how if I couldn't get up and leave, which I didn't think I would be able to, that I would attack the knees of whoever came to attack me, because I wasn't going to take it lying down. Not without a fight. And I remember thinking that I may not make it out of there alive, and that we may not have seen our democracy survive. But the thing that I keep with me to this day, a year later, is that we saved democracy. And when I say we, I am not talking about we members of Congress. I'm talking about we the people. All the people who voted that day or that election to get rid of a corrupt president who was trying to steal an election. All the people who ensured that no matter what happened, we were not going to succumb to the insurrectionists, the Capitol Police officers that Jamie talked about. And God bless Jamie Raskin for everything that he has gone through and all the leadership that he has shown as we impeached, as he led the impeachment trial in the Senate, where, don't forget, we got more votes, more bipartisan votes to impeach that president than ever before. It just wasn't quite enough because there wasn't enough courage. There wasn't enough courage and commitment to our democracy at that time. But as we made it out of that gallery, and as we think about it today, I think the thing that is hardest is that this is not something that is a marker of something past. It is actually still clear in present danger. And it is why it is so important that you are here, because everything we believe in is on the line right now. And there is nothing that anyone can do that is more powerful than the collective coming together and insisting we are going to organize and we are never going to give in and we are going to make sure we stand up and we protect this democracy as has been done before and before so many times at so much sacrifice and so much cost. And at the end of the day, being human is a courageous act. And particularly being an activist is a courageous act. Because it's pretty easy to go back and say, you know what, we didn't get what we wanted, I'm done, I'm frustrated, I can't do this anymore, I'm tired. But you're out here on January 6th in the cold because you know that any change we have ever had in this country has come about because people like you got together with other people like you, and it spread. The power of a collective movement for a collective democracy has always been the greatest strength of our democracy. That is what Public Citizen does. That is what People for the American Way does. That is what you do every day when you stand up and you say, I'm going to fight to pass Build Back Better. I'm going to fight to make sure that we have voting rights. I'm going to fight for DC statehood. I'm going to fight for Medicare for all. I'm going to fight for our democracy to deliver the kind of justice that we know is possible. So thank you all so much for that belief, for that faith, for that commitment, for never giving up, because we are far stronger than any of those cowardly people that stormed the Capitol on January 6th. Far stronger. Thank you, everybody.
Let's hear it from Ms. Jayapal, great Congresswoman, great chair of the Progressive Caucus. And now it's my great honor to bring out the good friend of my godfather, Bill Chappelle, our Congresswoman from Washington, D.C., our great patriot and fearless leader, Congresswoman Norton, Eleanor Holmes Norton.
Yes, thank you for bringing us out on this cold winter night in the face of the Capitol of the United States to commemorate January 6th. Thank you for coming to your capital and to my district, the District of Columbia. Yes, it was 1 year ago today, a day we will never let the country or the world forget, when we witnessed an outrageous assault on this U.S. Capitol as Congress was meeting to count the electoral votes for the last election. The attack was not only an attack on democracy, it was an attack on the District of Columbia, where we are now standing. The D.C. Police Department, which is paid for by D.C. residents who are denied representation in the House and the Senate and full self-government, moved voluntarily to save the lives of members of Congress, congressional staff, the Capitol, and democracy itself. Yet, House Republicans thanked D.C. by voting against the D.C. statehood bill only a few months after the attack. The Capitol attack focused the world on the lack of local autonomy for the residents of the Capitol of the United States. The president controls the D.C. National Guard, yet the governors of the states and the territories control their National Guards. During the January 6th attack, the former president delayed sending the D.C. National Guard to the Capitol for hours, likely costing lives. Only statehood would give D.C. the full and equal control
Statehood now.
of its local affairs. January 6th showed it needs and deserves. We have made historic progress on our D.C. statehood bill in the last few years. Last April, the House passed the D.C. statehood bill for the second year in a row. In the Senate, there are a record 45 co-sponsors of the bill, with an extraordinary with our extraordinary Senate sponsor of the bill, Tom Copper of Delaware, making it 46 supporters. And remember, there are only 50 members. And last year, the Senate held the second ever hearing on our D.C. statehood bill. Most important of all, and hear this now, according to a very detailed poll, 54% of the American people now support statehood for the residents of your nation's capital. Remember that number. That's more than a majority of the American people. The monument is clearly on our side. As we press for protection for our democracy on this January 6th commemoration, D.C. statehood is more important and timely than ever. D.C. residents pay the highest per capita federal taxes in the country and pay more in total federal taxes than 21 states. Our residents have served and died in every American war since the Revolution, which was fought over taxation without representation. On this first anniversary of the unprecedented attack on our democracy, let us make this an occasion to remember the nearly 700,000 residents of our nation's capital lack the same democratic representation other Americans have long enjoyed. Let us remember them by recommitting the nation to making the District of Columbia the 51st state of the United States of America. Thank you.
Statehood now.
Thanks so much to Representative Norton. So we're now going to turn to Representative Veronica Escobar from Texas, 16. She's one of the plaintiffs in the first civil case against Trump, Giuliani, the Proud Boys, and the Oath Keepers following January 6th.
Hello, fellow lovers of democracy. Buenas noches. How are you? You all, thank you so much for being here on this cold January day, the anniversary of a horrific attack against our country and against our democracy. I was one of the nearly 24 members of Congress, all Democrats, who were trapped in the gallery after we had already been surrounded by the insurrectionists, after the bear spray and attacks against our Capitol police officers had begun, after the windows had been broken, and after we witnessed what would be unspeakable horrors against our country. It is a day I will never forget, and I want to express my gratitude to all of you for being here to make sure that our country never forgets. My friends, we are on a precipice right now, and we have a choice to make as Americans. January 6th can either mark the end of our democracy or the beginning of our march towards expansion of rights and justice and equity and fairness for all. And I choose the latter. I choose the latter. And I know that you all have made that choice as well. And so we have to do what generations have done before us. You know, all of us, we are standing on the shoulders of giants, people like my beloved colleague, the late John Lewis. People who marched and were bloodied and were beaten. People willing to put up their lives in defense of the right to vote for themselves and for others. People who were willing to not rest until they achieved justice. Those are the giants of democracy who led the way for all of us. We have to pick up the torch. We have to continue that march. We have to continue that fight because of that precipice that we're on, because of what happened a year ago, because of the threats to our country that exist today. And there's only one way that we will finally achieve that justice, and that is to demand it and to fight and make sure that the Senate hears our voice, make sure that in every community across this country, we are gathering together and saying, ya basta, it is time to defend the vote. It's time to fight for every American's access to the ballot box. We need to make sure that we do this every single day until we achieve that goal, my friends. And your presence here today gives me tremendous hope, because I know that the fight for good will triumph over evil. I know it. I see it in your eyes, I see it in your faces, and I know it in my heart. God bless you, and God bless America and our democracy. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Representative Escobar, for those really inspiring words. So now I am thrilled to bring up Senator Chris Van Hollen from Maryland, a democracy champion fighting in the trenches with Public Citizen and all of you for years. Come on up.
Thank you. Hey, man, thank you. It's great to see all of you. Thank you for being here to fight for our democracy, to secure our democracy. All of us know what is at stake, and we've got to act. We saw what happened just 1 year ago today. It was not an attack by a foreign power like we witnessed at Pearl Harbor. It was not an attack from a foreign terrorist group like we experienced on 9/11. It was an attack from within, and it was orchestrated and instigated by the former President of the United States, Donald Trump. And as a result of his actions, you saw thousands of people moving up that hill toward the citadel of democracy. You saw them take bear spray, you saw them take flagpoles and make them into weapons to beat police officers. You saw them take down an American flag and put up a Trump flag. That is not democracy in the United States of America. I want to thank the Capitol Hill Police. I want to thank the D.C. Metro Police and the National Guard for taking action that day that allowed us to come back and finish the job of certifying the election. They put their lives on the line, and some of them made the ultimate sacrifice to protect our democracy. And we have a duty to make sure we uphold their memory, and we have a duty to the American people. Because all of us know that while the violent mob failed to overturn the results of the election 1 year ago, that the big lie did not end there. In fact, the big lie has metastasized and spread throughout the country. So today, instead of seeing the violent mobs attacking the Capitol, you see that big lie materializing in a different form. You see it materializing in the form of legislatures, Trump Republican-controlled legislators, taking action in state after state to put up barriers to the ballot box. And they're not just trying to stop everybody from voting. They are targeting voters of color. They are targeting younger voters. They're targeting voters with disabilities. As the court said about an earlier effort in North Carolina, they are targeting voters of color with surgical precision. So what we saw here a year ago in the form of a violent coup attempt, we are now seeing in a slow motion coup attempt across this country. And we cannot let that stand. And that is why we have to take national action. We have to pass the Freedom to Vote Act. We have to establish uniform national standards to protect the right to vote of every American in every single state. I had hoped, many of us hoped a year ago, that the gravity of the moment would be fully felt by every member of the United States Congress, every member of the Senate and every member of the House, both parties. And for a few hours that night, I think many of us had some hope that at least some of our Republican colleagues would recognize the moment in history that we faced. But today, in the Senate, we don't have a single Republican member willing to stand up and protect our democracy. That is not a political statement. That is a statement of reality. It's a statement of fact today. And so while we would like to see a bipartisan coalition stand up for the Freedom to Vote Act and for the John R. Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, we cannot wait to have that support, which is never coming.
Amen.
And that is why we have to reform the rules of the Senate. We have to reform the filibuster. You know, the original rules of the Senate were not designed to allow a minority of senators to block the will of the majority. It was designed to be a place of vigorous debate. It was designed to be a place of prolonged debate if senators felt strongly about an issue. But at the end of the day, it was designed to allow the majority to work its will and work the will of the American people. Today in the United States Senate, we have just the opposite. You have very little real debate in the United States Senate. A lot of statements, but no real vigorous debate. And you have a filibuster rule in its current form that allows the minority party not even to show up to block a measure and to ultimately be able to allow the minority party or the minority on an issue to block a vote. We cannot allow a minority of senators to override the will of the American people. And that's what this is all about. This is about protecting our democracy, and we can't allow an antiquated, undemocratic rule to stop us from protecting our democracy and making sure we implement the will of the American people. Every American has the right to vote. No state should be trying in this day and age, and never, to block anybody's right to vote. States have tried that in the past. We've had a long struggle in our country to overcome that. We're not going back. And we need to pass the Freedom to Vote Act, and we need to reform the filibuster to get it there. And we need every one of you to be right here pressing to make that happen, because we are going to have a vote in the United States Senate. We're going to have it before Martin Luther King Day. We're going to have it before January 17th. Everybody needs to be stand up, and everybody needs to be counted in the light of day. And with your help, we will muster the votes necessary to pass the Freedom of Vote Act and to protect our democracy. Thank you all very much for being on the front lines of our democracy.
Thanks, Senator. Let's hear it for Senator Chris Van Hollen. And you know, the senator and Jamie Raskin reminded us the courage of the officers who defended the Capitol. But let us not forget that inside the Capitol aren't just police officers and politicians. No, there's janitors, there's staffers, there's secretaries, there's legislative assistants, there's patriots every day who come to work in that Capitol, as I did when I was a young page for Leon Panetta. I would sit on a bench outside the cloakroom, my head balanced on a filled-in bullet hole from when the Capitol had been shot up in the 50s. And they come to work every day knowing that that building's been attacked before, that on 9/11 there was a plan to destroy it, that there were anthrax attacks after that it was shot up in the 1950s, that it was burned down and attacked by British soldiers. Maybe that was the White House, but they know the risk that they take in coming there, and yet they come there every day because they are Americans who believe in our democracy and are honored to serve it. And we take them for granted as our neighbors. They're on the buses, they're on the metro. They're like my cousin who was in the last office at the Pentagon to survive on her wing when the planes hit it, who just came there every day as a secretary, not really thinking about the risk until, bam, it happened. And so to me, among the real heroes are the ones who have kept coming back even after they have been attacked. And so let us hear it for Harper White, a young man from Kentucky working for Rosa DeLauro from Connecticut, who survived that day and has come back every day to serve his country as the great patriot that he is. Harper, come on up.
Thank you, Ben, for that warm introduction, and thank you to all that helped organize this vigil. Thank you to the members of Congress who I have the honor of sharing the stage with today, and thank you all for being here. My name is Harper White, and I serve in the office of Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro. And on January 6, I went to work. My boss and mentor had a new office just steps away from the House floor. She was to watch the joint session of Congress and debate from the gallery while I waited in the office. She planned to stay for just 45 minutes and then return to the office where we would vote, where we would work until all votes were complete. Our plans for the day were about to change in ways in which we never thought imaginable. Shortly after she arrived in the gallery and I arrived in my office, an angry, unhinged mob stormed the Capitol. The Congresswoman and her colleagues were told to get on the ground and grab the gas masks under their chairs while an armed standoff took place outside of the chamber. In these chaotic moments, members were rushed to a secure location away from immediate threat. When the House recessed for the first time around 2:15, I knew something was wrong. I called the Congresswoman to see if she knew what was going on. She did not, but she assured me that we would both be okay. I stepped outside of the office, which is located directly outside of the Speaker's lobby, to see if I could find out any other information. After taking just a few short steps outside, someone rushed towards me, asked if I was staff, and then told me to go back into my office, lock the door, and not come out until Capitol Police said it was okay. For over 3 hours, I barricaded myself in the small office alone. I heard gunshots and the police yell shots fired. I heard insurrectionists tugging on my door. I peeked through the blinds and saw the growing crowd heading for the inaugural platform from outside of my window. I did not know what was going to happen, and I was scared. I was in that office until around 5:30 when I was met at the door by 8 Capitol Police officers and escorted to safety. But even during those lonely and frightening hours, I was also reminded of the community that is Capitol Hill. Many staff members who I had never met made calls to the Capitol Police. My boss told those on the other end of the phone, "We do not leave without Harper." Although I was by myself, I was not alone. I had the support of so many, and I will never forget that. Days after the insurrection, Congressman Jim McGovern of Massachusetts, who was in the Speaker's chair when the Capitol was breached, talked about the reverence he had for the Capitol on the House floor. He described his first internship on Capitol Hill and what it was like to walk the hallowed halls of Congress and to witness the glory of American democracy up close. Many who work in Congress have shared that experience. The thousands of people that visit the Capitol every year no doubt feel that sense of awe. I have never looked or worked at the Capitol without that reverence, without the awe. But now, in addition, we'll never look at the Capitol without the reminders of that day and the reminders of the fragility of our democracy. I will never look at the Capitol without thinking of the wooden storage unit half my size that I tried to hide in, or the sound that the elevator outside of my office made when it slammed repeatedly for hours against a fire extinguisher that the insurrectionists had placed between the doors to prevent access to my floor. But these reminders do not and cannot discourage our work. Instead, they serve to reaffirm the commitment for government to work for people and the most vulnerable, to not let anyone deter us from doing what is right. And in the years since the insurrection, the Capitol continues to stand for potential, the potential for good, and the potential to keep pushing toward a more perfect American democracy. Today, on January 6th, I went to work. You went to work. We went to work. And when the sun rises tomorrow, we will go to work again, undeterred, together, and more committed than ever. Thank you.
Harper, phenomenal, and thank you so much.
Kentucky.
Exactly. Senate seats are open. So now I want to turn to Julie Tagan, longtime Chief of Staff for Jamie Raskin, to share her tale.
Hi there. Again, I'm Julie Tagan, and thank you for having me here today to tell my story, because I think that it's important to me